Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Mail-in ballots, good food and beer, mortgage interest rates, lawsuits, Christopher Columbus. It's all happening. Liberty News Radio, Liberty Roundtable Live starts now with hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. My name is Sam Bushman, and let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about promoting God, family, and country, and protecting life, liberty, and property. And here to break down the news the networks refuse to use today with me, the good Sheriff Richard Mack, with the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org. Sheriff, welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks, Sam. It's great to be with you this beautiful, hot Arizona morning. But I gotta emphasize something, Sam. Really beautiful. We spent some time with our family on spring break in Tucson, Arizona, in the area called Old Tucson, where they film a lot of cowboy movies. But it's also in the middle of the Saguaro National Park, and there was probably 100,000 different saguaro cacti all over the place. And it was, if people don't believe the desert in Arizona is beautiful, you need to stop by because it absolutely is breathtaking.
Incredible, breathtaking. You guys are breaking heat records right now down there too. So early in the season, so hot, right?
We get a little reprieve in a few days. It's going to go down to 98.
Wow. All right. It's been up over 110 from what I understand. And it's breaking records because it's so early in the season for that to happen. There you have it. Speaking of hot topics, Sheriff, mail-in ballots are at the Supreme Court. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett says he expects a skeptical response from the Supreme Court. They're concerned about a lot of different things. He was on the Evening Edit, I guess, which is a show they have now. And the Supreme Court showed every evidence that they want to curb such processes. They're concerned about election fraud. The debate is, hey, if you do mail-in ballots, when do they have to be in by? If it's 1 day late, 2 days, 5 days, when's the deadline? And the delays in counting votes, they say, actually conflict with federal law. So they want to establish a day. They're saying, hey, they're leaning towards it has to be there, meaning in counting before or on Election Day, no later. He specifically mentioned how Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, hey, if you have delayed ballots, it could change. I mean, we think the next morning that it's this way, and then before you know it, it changes. The court also discussed associated issues like ballot harvesting, fraudulent ballot dating. According to a Mississippi law, for example, ballots can be counted up to 5 days post-Election Day. And they're saying, hey, you know what? That violates federal law because federal law sets an election day. And so in my mind, just so you know, that would say even early ballots would be against the law. If there's an election day, the ballots have to be there on that day. Justice Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh both raised points about the potential for fraud, the handling of ballots, which we'll get into more in seconds. But the Supreme Court concluded their oral arguments without giving any definitive answers, which they typically do. They give you kind of a flash in the pan, and then you don't hear till June kind of what the real takeaways on this thing are. I have so many problems with this, Sheriff, but why don't you respond to the details of the story first, and then we'll drill into some opinion and analysis on this thing.
Well, this, Sam, I think it shows just how absolutely convoluted the voting system has become. And it's mostly because of the fraudulent measures taken by politicians and parties, mostly the Democrats. Look at what the Democrats are really proposing right now. They are proposing that anyone, no matter where you're from, no matter what country you're from, even if you're here on vacation, can walk into any polling place, register to vote, the same day of the election, vote right after you register, go home to Argentina the next day, and brag how you voted in to the newspaper there.
And you can vote early, you can vote late, you can vote often.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter when the ballots get sent out. And like in 2020, when, you see, that's the year Trump lost, supposedly, Don and I lived in West Phoenix, and we each received 3 ballots, and we never requested any of them. So we had a total of 6 ballots. And when I tried to ask them why they sent me, I called the Maricopa County elector's office, and they said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why you got 6. Just vote for one." And I said, "I never requested any of them." Okay, and this, Sam, the whole thing is
yeah.
just
But how can you vote early, vote often, vote
cheating.
multiple times if you don't get them early and get multiple ballots, Sheriff? I mean, how are you supposed to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I lived in a very strong Democrat area, so I think that's one of the reasons they did it. Yeah.
Well, and that's the problem, is that even the Democrats or the Republicans having control of ballots in the first place is problematic. How would the Democrats control a Democrat stronghold in the first place? I mean, that alone is fraud in and of itself. But my issue with the Supreme Court is, why are we even debating the date ballots should be mailed in by? Obviously, if it's after Election Day, it should not count. That's obvious, but in, of course, some states it does count. But here's my problem, though. Why are we even doing mail-in balloting in the first place? Now, you say, Sam, it used to be the case when people would request a ballot and it was absentee. Yeah, but that's very limited. You request a ballot because you know you're going to be gone or whatever, or maybe the military if you're out of the country, but you still want to. Okay, I get those unique situations and I support them. And there's already rules governing those. But mailing out ballots to everybody and or ballots being sent in randomly, how do you have any custody of the ballots along that road? We know that. So why are we even talking about this? It happened because of COVID, and they felt like everybody couldn't gather and vote. Why are we holding on to this and debating this at all? Why don't we just simply say, hey, there is no mail-in balloting of any kind except for absentee normal procedure from yesteryear, and you're going to have to go into the voting booth and vote on the day of the election, and we're not doing that. Why are we even considering this? Why don't we just shut that down entirely instead? I wish the courts would say mail-in balloting is bogus. We can't trust the custody of the ballots.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And none of it is fair or honest. Because first of all, if you're a candidate and they have early voting and you're still out there pounding the pavement and trying to campaign and get elected, early voting, you go to people's houses and you spend all this time and effort to go out and meet people.
It doesn't do any good. I already voted. Why are you coming to my house, buddy?
Yeah, no kidding. And so
that, to me, again, is election fraud, though, Sheriff.
It is
if I'm literally campaigning before Election Day and you literally have people vote and possibly vote more than once before that day, then you're destroying my campaigning period or time or whatever. See, to me, that alone is fraud. And so I don't even understand why we're allowing this debate at the Supreme Court to happen. Congress needs to step up and say, oh, no, we're not going to allow mail-in voting of any kind.
They shouldn't. And are you allowed to go to the polls the day after? No. But if you mail in a ballot, then you are. No.
Right. See?
What? Why? Sam, the cheating is so absolutely ubiquitous and common. It is just scary.
But it's surprising even the Republicans seem to go along with it, though. I mean, I don't hear anybody talking about this while the Supreme Court really brings this up. I mean, there's a few people, Greg Jarrett on Fox is going, yeah, I think the Supreme Court's not happy with this, and I think they're going to draw the line somewhere, and that's fine to get a legal analyst on TV, but where are the American people to stand up? Where is Congress to say, hey, we're the ones that decide the law here, not the courts debating about the day? Congress can literally lay this down and say, we're not doing mail-in balloting at all. Of course, the deadline is the day of the election. No, you can't vote early. That would be fraud. That would be preventing any candidate from conveying their message all the way through the, election campaigning season or whatever you want to say. Congress is ready to go on recess, though, so I guess they can't work on this, Sheriff.
Well, of course, they want the shutdown to continue. And I swear, Sam, we've got to do some voter referendum, and the American people have got to get involved in this process, because if they're going to shut government down, which to me, I would love to shut Congress down. We'd all be a lot safer and richer if we could shut them down.
Yeah, but they're all getting paid while nobody else is.
Well, that's the problem, Sam. That's exactly what I'm alluding to. Because if there's a shutdown, the first people to lose their salary should be Congress. And there would never be a shutdown again because it needs to be permanent. If you allow government to shut down what they're doing to the airline industry now, destroying airline industry like they are, no way, not even.
Couldn't agree more, ladies and gentlemen. We've got election fraud with Republicans and Democrats in the first place. They're private parties, and they've got our elections shanghaied. They've also got government shut down. Their whole responsibility is to run government, not shut it down. When they shut it down, we ought to yank their pay. But again, they always vote themselves special privileges as well. More in seconds. It's all about food and beer, baby.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began. Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the good sheriff, Sheriff Richard Mack with me, president and founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org. Become a member of the posse today, would you please? If you're interested in solutions, we need you, CSPOA.org. So, Sheriff Mack, you might like this. Have you ever heard about the Dine Across the Aisle promotion, sir?
Dine Across the Aisle.
Yes, sir.
That's a way to get both Republicans and Democrats to go to the same restaurant?
Yeah, well, kind of, to talk at the restaurant. So here's the deal. There's a Minnesota restaurant. It's actually called Sweeney's Saloon in St. Paul. And they're offering a eat free meals to state lawmakers if they are involved in the Dine Across the Aisle promotion. So if you're a Republican elected official and you go in with somebody across the aisle that's an elected official, then they'll basically give you the poor man's special for free. And you can go ahead and dine and hang out. And the Minnesota state representatives, some of them have already taken advantage of this on the Republican side and the Democratic side. The initiative aims to foster connections and reduce political tension. And their whole goal is, hey, we want a grassroots effort to try to get people to talk, to get aside or set aside kind of the politics of things, to get to know one another. And the promotional offer will be available, I guess, during their whole 2026 legislative session. And I guess that started on February the 2nd and ends on May the 18th. And anyway, my wife sent me this story, and I thought it was pretty cool because I really do believe if we sit down and kind of learn about each other's hobbies or families or, likes and dislikes, and pretty soon people become human. And then instead of just thinking that the other guy's the enemy and the bad guy all the time or whatever, hopefully we can kind of set aside a little bit of politics and work together a little bit more and have a little more dignity and respect for the other side and maybe solutions. And, I mean, to me, it seems like a wonderful grassroots effort put together by this saloon.
Well, I maybe I go out there and get some sheriffs to go eat there with me.
Well, you could do that, and then they'd have to debate if the sheriffs are, Republican or Democrat, and then you'd have to bring somebody else. But as far as I understand, it's only state candidates at this point in the state of Minnesota for this.
Also, well, that brings up a prejudice against other elected officials.
Well, so it could be any elected official. They've just got to be from the state that, they're from.
Oh, okay. Well,
so if you got a Minnesota sheriff that's a Democrat or a Republican, and they were willing to bring a sheriff so if you got two sheriffs together, a Republican and a Democrat, then they could both eat free. If they're, sheriffs in that state, and you could have these incredible dialogues and things. I think it's a great opportunity.
I really do like the idea, and that falls in line with your push for the last 10 or 15 years for civility. And I mean, I would love to see that. What would Maxine Waters and Jasmine Crockett do in their spare time, then? Because they're always promoting division and hate and rancor and vitriolic rhetoric, and half of the politicians wouldn't know what to do with their time. Yeah,
they don't have this in California, but wow, it'd sure be interesting. And yeah, it'd be interesting to sit down some of the most polarizing figures and really kind of be a fly on the wall and watch how they would talk.
Right.
And, hopefully they would discuss things like their families and their hobbies and get to know each other personally. For example, you can disagree with Richard Mack on a lot of things, but when you hear that he, went to Arizona, went to Tucson, and went to all these different things and learned about all these different cacti and the beautiful landscape and things like that of Arizona. And I mean, is that something that they could go, I've been there. That's really cool, Sheriff. I agree. Or, I haven't been there. I'd love to see that. That's incredible. And do you have any pictures that you've taken when you were there, Sheriff? I'd love to. And, and this reminds me of.
You got to add one thing to that.
Sure.
The javelina on the golf course and around the hotel we were at. Yeah. Lots of them.
Yeah.
We're talking about wild pigs, javelina. Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. And it reminds me of, this Rolling Stone author that wrote this Rolling Stone article about me and attacked me so hard. It was just full of all kinds of half-truths and dishonesty. And I remember kind of ripping him apart on the phone about it and talking about it. And and the reason I ripped him apart is because he's like, so how were the conspiracy meetings when you went there, Sam? I'm like, conspiracy meetings? What are you talking about? He goes, oh, come on. I wasn't born yesterday, Sam. And I'm like, I really honestly don't know what you're talking about. I didn't go to any conspiracy meetings. I didn't go to any secret meetings. There just wasn't any there, I promise. And he just would not believe me. And so I tried to invite him to lunch. I said, why don't we go out to lunch and just sit down and maybe we can kind of take some of this political wrangling out of it and get to know each other personally. He goes, I'd never go out to lunch with a racist like you.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And he wouldn't even consider going out to lunch with me. And I just thought, wow. So I'm thinking about trying to send him this story and, talking about that and going, man, my lunch offer still stands, my friend. And I remember calling him friend one time. I'm like, I don't know what you think about this, my friend. He's like, I'm not your friend.
Well, that was for sure. He wasn't a friend and he wasn't friendly. And I talked to him and tried to defend you. And then he called me the same thing.
Yeah, see, I mean, it's just out of control. And the funny thing is, me and my buddy C.L. Bryant, we're working on, promoting our radio talk shows together and all this kind of stuff. And so there you go. Me and Jesse Lee Peterson and James Edwards and all these people are working on this still, trying to tell the truth, trying to let people know who we really are. By the way, mortgage rates in the United States were way up for a while. Then they started dropping. But now mortgage rates in the United States rose for the third consecutive week in a row. I guess it's 6.2%, up from 6.11% the previous week. And they say this increase is partly attributed to energy costs related to the conflict in the Middle East, particularly the blocking of gas and oil exports. Consequently, the yield on 10-year Treasury notes is up. And the National Association of Home Builders reported, hey, people are concerned about this, and they believe it's going to kind of make things tank. The Federal Reserve decided to leave interest rates alone, not change them. But the housing market has already been sluggish since COVID-19, and mortgage rates reached a high of 7.7%. So they're not at their high, but they're going up, and we don't expect them to come down anytime soon, Sheriff. This is bad news for the economy, sir.
It really is, Sam. You know, the refinance mortgage companies have been calling me, and they're all over the place, and they're desperate for some business, and then this happens. So it really is a sad day and a sad time, and the marketplace should be the one. Free markets, capitalism. The key word there is free. If there's mortgage companies that want to lower the rates, they should be able to do that and the Federal Reserve should stay out of it. The Federal Reserve doesn't have any right to exist in the first place.
Well, and that's what's interesting. President Trump wants to get a Fed commissioner in there that'll help lower rates or whatever else. And, you know, I don't really see any value there. It's just one person changing or controlling rates versus another person controlling rates. And it's all based on opinion and their analysis and their thoughts. Why not just leave it to the free market? Why not just let supply and demand decide all that and let it be?
Well, that's what I would propose. And then we could finally get rid of the biggest cause of America's currency demise and inflation, and get rid of the Federal Reserve. I'll repeat this again, Sam. Article 1, Section 8 says, Congress shall coin our money and regulate the value thereof, not international banksters known as the Federal Reserve.
Amen to that. The other interesting thing about the Federal Reserve and some of those decisions relating to it, you know, the oil or the dollar's tied to oil right now. So the dollar's taking a beating because it's tied to oil. And I guess my question about that is, why is that? See, if we were on gold and silver, like we're supposed to be, oil wouldn't be near directly related as it is now. And when these countries like China and Russia, I mean, Trump's literally allowing Russian oil now to be sold, and he's allowing Iranian oil now to be sold to what? The Chinese and the Russians? And they're going to do it all in their own currencies or in the whatever you want to call their dollar now, as opposed to our dollar. That alone is going to cause more trouble.
Well, it is, and it just never ceases to amaze me. But government interference is really the problem here. And if we would just get back to the basics of fundamental capitalism ideals, Adam Smith, economic policies, instead, of course, what do we want to do? Replace it with communism and socialism. Wow. Thank you, Democrats. We already knew that you were pushing socialism and communism for the last several decades. And Theodore Roosevelt was a big progressive. I don't know where that word comes from either. Progressive means destruction when it comes to those certain leaders. I don't get it, Sam. You know, it just seems to be that the Democrats are hell-bent on destroying our country, destroying our economy, and doing it all for one thing, and that is to continue their cheating and election fraud so that they can win. And it appears really that's the only way they can win is election fraud. And the biggest election fraud they have promoted are bringing in illegal aliens to get on the voter rolls. That is the epitome.
I think there's truth to that for sure, but sadly the Republicans aren't far behind. I mean, the Democrats are blatant and bold.
Right.
But the Republicans just want to blame the Democrats, play the blame game. For example, both Republicans and Democrats created the TSA and Homeland Security together. It was created and signed by a Republican-controlled Congress and Republican president at the time back in 2002. Now we're debating who's going to fund it, and both are saying the other guys won't fund it. Meanwhile, nobody gets paid. It's a disaster, folks, and it points to this problem in America, which we're getting to next. Out of control lawfare. Everybody wants to sue everybody. That ought to be a rap song. Everybody wants to sue everybody that somebody could put together, talking about lawfare and everything else. It'd make a great rap song, wouldn't it? All right, hold on. We'll tell you more in seconds. The good Sheriff Richard Mack with me.